And I call the member for Boothby.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Treasurer. Will the Treasurer remind the House how the extensive range of economic support, including tax cuts, in the Morrison government's economic recovery plan is helping families to get ahead and businesses to create jobs, especially in my electorate of Boothby? Is the Treasurer aware of any alternative policies?
The Treasurer has the call.
Well, thank you, Mr Speaker. I thank the member for Boothby for a question, acknowledge her time at the Chamber of Commerce as a journalist and taking on Get Up and winning, Mr Speaker. Well done to the member for Boothby, Mr Speaker. Now, Mr Speaker, the member for Boothby, like those on this side of the House, understand that the economic recovery across Australia is now underway. 446,000 jobs have been created in the last 4 months. 60% of those jobs have gone to women, and 40% of those jobs have gone to young people, Mr Speaker. We saw an increase in consumer sentiment this month of 11.9%. That was the single largest increase in consumer sentiment in a budget month since the series first began in 1974, Mr Speaker. And we've seen Australia's AAA credit rating recently reaffirmed, Mr Speaker. And I can inform the House that today consumer confidence increased for an 8th straight week, Mr Speaker, an 8th straight week, and now consumer confidence is back to its levels it was at the start of the pandemic in early March, Mr Speaker. Now, the reality is the Morrison government has responded with an unprecedented level of economic support. That economic support has helped save 700,000 jobs. And we saw in the budget the next phase of our economic recovery plan, extra money for research and development, for skills, for training, for bringing forward infrastructure projects, for investing in new infrastructure projects, but also, importantly, putting money back into the pockets of Australians with tax cuts, Mr Speaker. Tax cuts for more than 11.5 million Australians. So if you're earning $60,000, you will pay $2,160 less tax this year than before our program was rolled out, Mr Speaker. We've also seen an expanded instant asset write-off. We've also seen a loss carry-back measure, Mr Speaker. These are all designed to support jobs and economic activity. But I'm asked, are there any alternative approaches? And we know that only those on this side of the House stand for lower taxes, because the member for Rankin and the member for McMahon took to the last election $387 billion of higher taxes that are still on their books. Do you remember the member? Do you remember the member for McMahon? Do you remember the member for McMahon saying if you don't like our retirees' tax, you don't have to vote for it? Well, the news for the member for McMahon is Australians didn't vote for it, Mr Speaker. And we also know that the member for Rankin let his guard down the other day at the press club when he revealed the real truth, when he said that the tax cuts, the legislated tax cuts, were a handout, Mr Speaker. Well, tax cuts are not a handout, Mr Speaker, from government. Tax cuts are handing back to the Australian people their money, Mr Speaker. We on this side of the House stand for lower taxes for all Australians.